What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a little bit ever since Moneyberg was featured on Ariel Helwani's show, and Ariel grilled him. He grilled him like crazy, and most people were applauding Ariel and saying what a great job he did for exposing this guy for the fake black belt. He's a fraudster, he's a scammer, etc. And I had a little bit of a different take, and it was mainly because I watch Ariel's show all the time, and I'm a big fan of his fighter interviews, but that was a really different version of Ariel, and he came in with a very specific agenda. It wasn't like his typical interviews where it's just exploration. Let me listen, let me dig deeper. If I get an interesting answer, I want to really share this person's character and who they are and their personality with the MMA community. This really felt like a premeditated attack, and he was there to expose Derek Moneyberg, and he didn't really give him a chance to explain anything about himself. Now, look, I'll be the first to say I don't know much about Derek Moneyberg in terms of all this specifics of what he teaches in his courses and things like that. But when I look at it objectively, he's not saying things that are wild. Like when I hear, for example, other fighters, not to throw Dylan Dennis unfairly under the bus, but when I hear him, I'm like, dude, that guy's just straight lying. That's the vibe that I get when I hear Dylan Dennis talk, or some of these other, there might be other people where I feel like that. I didn't necessarily feel like that about Moneyberg. Now, he could be spinning at such a high rate in terms of what he's saying, where I can't even catch on to it, and I'm not able to figure it out. Hey, that could be happening, but I don't know. I thought that what Ariel did was a little bit unfair, and I think he did it because he knew the whole MMA community has like turned on this guy in the BJJ community, and it was a chance for him to dunk on him without any repercussions. That's kind of was my take on it. So I didn't really like it. I would have much preferred a more fair exploration of like his different claims and things like that. I felt like the whole thing was just an interrogation, and I didn't like it. On top of that, one of the other people that have talked about Derek Moneyberg a lot has been Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland is notorious. I pointed out he's notorious for just saying things that he has very little information about. He just gets on there, he uses his platform, and he speaks. And I don't think he does his due diligence barely at all. He's funny, and that's kind of what makes him entertaining. Is he says a lot of random stuff, and sometimes, a lot of times it doesn't really make sense. But again, I felt that way when he was talking about Derek Moneyberg. He's calling him a scammer, and then right after that in the video, if you remember, I'm not going to play it here, but if you remember, he said, yeah, man, making money, it's pretty straightforward advice. You just want to invest in high yield mutual funds. And I remember thinking that, and I remember hearing that, and that's probably maybe something you heard as a catchphrase in some sort of an investor meeting or with one of his portfolio managers, something like that. But I was like, dude, a high yield, if you're investing in a high yield mutual funds, that's a high risk mutual fund. I mean, there's a high chance for return, but that's not always the best strategy. That's just a small example. But again, like right in that video, he was saying stuff that I don't think he really understood. So I wasn't putting too much weight into Sean Strickland calling him a scam artist or saying that he was fake or giving bad advice, etc. Then Moneyberg goes on and has this interview with Mike Perry. I think Mike Perry gave him a really fair interview, really had a fair conversation with him. And he came away after the talk being like, this guy's not so bad. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to go through some of the things that he talked about in this interview and just give him a fair chance. From what I'm seeing, I'm not seeing anything crazy bad about this guy. I've heard his background. I know he had a background in being a dating coach. I know that he had this program where he helps people, he coaches them as a financial coach or whatever. And I know lots of people that that are coaches in all sorts of various aspects of life that don't have degrees or licenses. I know Ariel really grilled him about that, but he could still have results. And if he has a business that's thriving, there may be some legitimacy to it. The last thing I'll say before we get into the clips is one thing that I did hear is that he had people write reviews about his course midway through the course, which I personally would not do, because I do feel like you're fudging the numbers. You're getting people to write reviews about a course when they're in the midst of the course. And so you're kind of like, nobody's going to write a bad review if you're going to have to come back and see the instructor. Like, it's a little bit massaging the numbers. But dude, I'm not saying that this is a practice that I would follow by any means. I don't like it, but it's not so out of pocket. People do this type of thing all the time. They'll ask their friends to write reviews for their products or whatever to bump up the ratings. This type of thing happens all the time. I'm not a fan of it, but I don't think that puts him into the straight up scam artist bucket, if you will. So that's my 2 cents. But let's hear him out. And like, you hear him talk, and he doesn't sound like a complete Like when you hear Dylan Dance talk, you're like, dude, this guy's lying about like 80% of what he says. I don't feel that way about Derek Moneyberg. So anyways, we're going to give him a fair shot here. People can get mad at me if they want, but just listen to what he's got to say in these clips and listen to my feedback. And then you can walk away. You can say I've been totally fooled if that's how you feel. And maybe I have been. All right, let's start with this first clip. So the one thing that he got tons and tons of hate on repeat about was him getting this black belt. Oh, he never competed. Oh, only BJ Penn did in 3.5 years. So we're going to hear him explain the black belt and why it is actually a nonsensical take to say that he bribed all these guys and just bought it and convinced these guys to just speak on his behalf when there's no merit whatsoever to it. And I think he makes a good point. So we're going to start with this right here because this seems to be the heart of the controversy.
Anybody with an IQ of 90 doesn't think that I bought my black belt. Because what would be easier? Like, let me just ask you guys this. Like, what would be easier? Like, would it be easier for me to bribe 50 professional fighters, 25 or so world champions? Would it be easier for me to bribe those people to lie about me and say that I'm a black belt? Or would it be easier for me to just do the training and get my black belt? So, I mean, anybody that really believes that, it's like, it's unfortunate they were born from their father's ass. It's unfortunate they bumped their head when they fell out of their father's ass. And, you know, some people could have been born retarded, could have had a head trauma when he fell out of his father's ass. I don't know which. I'll never know. It could be both. But that's be it. It'd be easier to do the work than to bribe those people. Do you think that Hoist Gracie and Lyoto Machida and Gordon Ryan and all these people, I mean, Greg Jackson's here. He watches me grapple with people. Like, do you think that I've bribed Greg Jackson and Henry Hooft and all the best coaches and all the best? That's ridiculous.
He makes a really good point. To go out and actually, I mean, how could you do that? How could you pull that off in terms of like convincing everybody to say, yo, this guy's legit. No, he knows how to roll. He knows how to grapple. That doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even seem like a feat that you could achieve unless you're paying each guy exorbitant amounts of money. And there's probably a lot of guys that would even say, like, I don't care how much, I don't care if you pay me $10 million. I'm not lying on your behalf. I do believe that there would be people that would stand up and say that. On top of that, this is a subjective thing. There's no, and we're going to talk about that in the next clip. I've got another clip next from Josh Thomson and his partner on Bad Takes. They both give really good takes on this. Again, it's a subjective standard. So what are we debating? When Ariel goes out and compares him to BJ Penn, who got it in 3.5 years, living at the gym, training like 9 hours a day and being an athletic phenom. Yeah, sure. He got his black belt. But again, that's at another gym with another set of standards. And as Josh Thomson and this guy, don't know his name, but he actually gives some good takes. But as these guys explain, there's different criteria, different gyms. Like sometimes guys have the knowledge, but may not have the skills. Or if they're over a certain age, they're not going to compete. So he doesn't require them to compete, but they still, in their minds, do provide value to the gym. And they decide subjectively to give them a black belt. And that could be the same thing here. They may have seen the effort that this guy put in, may have seen that he's dedicated, that he does have the knowledge. Maybe he's not the most amazing fighter compared to a UFC fighter, but he's done all these other things that are like, you know what, you earn this, kid. And now it's blown up. This subjective standard is being analyzed under a microscope. He's being compared against all these MMA fighters. Like, I thought that before, but now you listen to all these takes back to back, it really puts together and it makes that narrative clear that it's just not a fair standard that they're applying. The last thing I'll say too is, if you remember, if you guys know who Tony Robbins is, I believe years ago, he actually went out and he got a black belt, I think in like Taekwondo or karate or something, in 6 months. So he trained like a madman in that condensed period of time. So again, it's the same type of thing. He put in an exorbitant amount of money, invested it with coaches so he could achieve this high level in a very short period of time and like really concentrated and really focused. Nobody was calling that into question. That was more of a, hey, just let me show you the power of my mind and focus and energy. But do you think that that Tony Robbins is going to go out there and compete in Taekwondo or karate tournaments, whatever art that he learned? And do you think he's going to be a formidable opponent to these guys who have been black belts for like 10, 20, 30 years? No, but again, it's probably a bit of a sliding scale. There's not like, hey, you have to hit exactly this rubric and this standard of things in order to get your black belt. It's gym to gym to gym. So anyways, listen to these guys. They're the fighters. Okay. And I know this guy also rolls as well and is a jiu-jitsu player as well. So listen to their take and they explain it very eloquently, how this could have happened and could make total sense.
is I'm going to do a little bit of a different twist. So obviously there's a bunch of hate coming in like this isn't possible. There's hate from the jiu-jitsu world. There's hate coming in from everywhere. Like that's not possible. BJ Penn took longer. Gordon Ryan took longer. There's no way. But there are also levels to black belts. It's not a universal thing. There's also it's not like passing a test, meaning when you go to school to become a plumber and then you have to go to the state to get licensed to be a plumber, you have to pass an actual test. And everybody who passes that test is equal a plumber. That's not the case with a black belt. It is very subjective. And it is an interesting world. People have done the math with, okay, if he got from nothing to black belt in 3.5 years, he'd be training this amount of hours every single day, literally 0 days off whatsoever. In theory, it's possible. He's a millionaire. If you got free time, you can pay for all the privates training with high-level people. What I will say is, if you are looking at the levels to black belts component, and let's say he does understand all the moves, is that possible? Like you said, you've given out a few black belts. What is your criteria for, okay, this guy's a black belt? Is it he's in the room beating black belts, so now he is? Or is it like, no, he understands these specific moves, and for that reason, you're a black belt?
Yeah, it has to do with whether you can relay. For me, is can you actually do the techniques, and then can you actually teach them to a 5-year-old and have the 5-year-old understand them? I mean, that's the best way I could wrap it up as quickly as possible. I can get into like a lot more of the details of it all, but can you turn around and teach it to a 5-year-old and have them understand you and break it down for them to where they can actually do the technique properly? Now, sure, some 5-year-olds are better than others, and so some black belts are better than others. This is how it goes. There's a lot of black belts out there who've gotten black belts from all different types of names. You know, whether it's the Machados, whether it's the Gracies, whether it's whatever, Cabrini, whatever it is, right? There's just levels to it based on like, if this guy's been training with me consistently for 18 years, 15 years, and he's like in his push into his 60s, I'm going to belt him up. Like, you know, he has all the knowledge. He's been here. It's just like, you know that he can't beat the young guys anymore. So why are you going to hold him back, not give him his black belt? Just understand he's there to help the gym grow. He's there to help your lower level belts, blue and purples, actually learn the technique, spend more time with them. Do something that you can't do because you're getting your brains picked by other brown belts and black belts that are.
It's such an amazing take, and it's the insight of somebody who's a gym owner who understands the process and the protocol and the value sometimes of giving somebody a black belt who has that knowledge, who can help the gym. So like when Ariel was grilling Moneyberg, I felt like he was being so kind of like a little dishonest, to be honest, because he was like, oh how would you, Moneyberg said if he rolled with Gordon Ryan, that Gordon Ryan would beat him in a minute. He's like, oh, you would get beaten in a minute, but you're a black belt. And he's like, dude, well, obviously there's levels to black belts. And he's like, this is the best in the world. It's not like any black belt is going to go out and give Gordon Ryan a run for their money. I mean, we see this in the UFC all the time. We have two fighters at the elite level. We saw Khamzat Chimaev go in against GM3 and knock him out in 17 seconds. So what are you gonna be like, dude? Well, obviously you're a fake MMA fighter because you got knocked out. No, like there's always levels to even the higher levels. And obviously this guy is in his 40s. Like, come on, dog. It was so unfair. So I feel like Josh Thomson here really explains it well. How, yeah, is he at a level of Mikey Musumeci or any of these guys? Of course not, right? He's training as a hobbyist, kind of similar to me. I love Muay Thai. I picked it up later in life. I think I'm pretty decent, but I'm not going to go out there. There's no belts at my gym anyways, but if I had a certain belt, I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to go prove myself because I'm going to go do some competitions. No, I don't want to compete. I don't want to have a kickboxing match or risk getting severe damage to myself and affect my livelihood and things like that. But I love to train. I think I've got a certain skill level, but I'm not sitting here being like, okay, and now I'm going to go prove myself or actually compete. Like another thing that Ariel said, you've never competed. Most people compete and get their black belts that way. No, Josh Thomson just explained that there are definite exceptions to that. So I felt like he was done wrong by Ariel, and a lot of people got the wrong idea, but this is a clear explanation. So take it for what it's worth. This, to me, makes the whole narrative make a lot more sense. And I'm going to say what I feel, and I feel like this guy doesn't seem so bad to me, and that's just what it is. But show me otherwise. If you vehemently disagree and there's evidence to show otherwise, I'm open to hear it as well. But this is currently where I stand, just from trying to listen to this guy somewhat objectively. Now, oh wait, I have this slide wrong. I think this one is. Hold on, let me see what this clip is.
Anybody with a.
Oh, we already. I think I already played this clip, right? This is him talking about the black belt. Yeah, sorry, I think I played this. Played that clip twice. Hold on here. So we've got that one where he talks about the thing. Now we're gonna get into the next section. So this is going back to when Moneyberg called him out. I'm sorry, Sean Strickland called Moneyberg out and did that whole thing. He tried to get him on camera. I thought the whole thing was real kind of sneaky because they were supposed to have a conversation. Then he starts filming it. Then he posts it. And then he says the nonsense about the high yield bonds. Like, I was kind of cracking up because it's just Sean Strickland being Sean Strickland. But then he continues to say stuff about Moneyberg, and Moneyberg is now saying that he's going to sue him. I mean, if there's any truth to what Strickland is saying, that's not the right play, because through discovery, the truth will come out. So if he's legitimately suing him, that would again support Moneyberg standing on business, like being real. We'll see. But now Moneyberg brings up something that's very interesting, and if it's true, which I tend to believe it, I don't get the sense that he's making this up. But if it's true, then it really calls into question all of Sean's criticism, because if Sean really believed that everything he's doing is fake and that he's a fake grappler, why doesn't he take Moneyberg up on the offer that I'm about to play? So this is very interesting. Check this out. Oops. Get this to play.
For some reason, Sean decided to say a lot of things about me that are not true. He can have whatever opinion he wants about a black belt. I said, come train with me then. I said, I've been to your gym several times. I know the owner. I know your coach. I know a lot of people on the team over there to train at that gym. I said, I'd be happy to come train with you. I asked him different times to do an interview with me, and he just wants to talk on the internet. It seems that's my impression, is that he says a lot of on the internet, but when I'm standing face to face with him, he don't want to have a conversation. When I'm 2 feet away from him, he don't want to have a conversation. When I'm training at Glover Teixeira's gym and he's there, he didn't show up at the gym for 2 days. Because, in my opinion, because I was there, he didn't want to. And I said, hey, I'm going back to the gym in an hour. If you believe that, come roll with me in an hour. We'll go to the gym together.
Whoa.
I ain't seen you there all week, dude. Where you been? So, I don't know. I don't know what's on his mind. But he said a lot of things that are not true, and that's going to turn into that's a lawsuit that he's going to have to deal with now. And if we could get that lawsuit resolved at some point in the future, I'll be happy to do a grappling match with him. Says. He's got his black belt for more than 10 years. I respect him as a fighter, but I don't think he's a better grappler than I am. And I'd be happy to do that.
I mean, that's big talk, especially if you're grappling somebody like Sean, where there's heat behind it, and Sean does not like Moneyberg. That's so dangerous, because you could obviously see Sean losing his cool and getting the better of him, like trying to break his arm or like ground and pound him into the ground, do some weird stuff like that. Like, Sean's hurt a lot of people in the cage and sparring. He's gone way over the line. So, but he's standing on it. So why hasn't Strickland taken him up on that? That's a big question. It should be open and shut. Strickland's an MMA fighter in the UFC, former champion. He should smash Moneyberg. Why does he not want to take that? That's kind of weird. Unless Moneyberg is lying, but I don't know. He's saying it out there right there. Sean Strickland could come out and be like, all right, let's do it. And then if it doesn't happen, then we could see clearly that Moneyberg is lying. But Sean Strickland hasn't done that. And he stayed relatively quiet lately, at least on all this. So I'm inclined to believe Moneyberg here. And again, it calls into question Sean's entire narrative, but it sort of lines up with the way Sean does things. He says things that don't really add up. I think maybe says things before he fully considers them and contemplates them. And that's what it is. But this is just another instance to me where I feel like I think Moneyberg is saying what's real. All right, now we're going to move on to Moneyberg talking about the Ariel interview. So this is what he has to say about the Ariel interview. I already mentioned multiple times. I've talked about how I do think it was unfair. I think he characterizes it accurately right here. Check this out.
Came out of there.
I think it was a win for both of us. Anybody that knows Ariel well knows that he's a bit of a worm. That's not surprising to anybody. But I think it was a big win for both of us. That I think to his audience, he did a great job. That they wanted somebody, that part of the audience wanted somebody to poke at me and poke at me and poke at me and, try to make me feel uncomfortable in some way. And I mean, what would Ariel Helwani ever do to me in life that would make me so uncomfortable? I was very calm. I answered his questions. I was more polite than I needed to be. And I think it was good for him, for the mass audience. And I had hundreds of people, including people that you guys know that are famous people and well-respected people. They send me DMs. They don't want to make public comments about me because it's so popular to attack me in the public right now. If you go make a public comment, you wait till the comments come on this video. It'll be 90% negative comments, and when somebody leaves a nice comment, then that person will get attacked. There'll be 40 sub comments saying he paid you, you're his boyfriend. They say ridiculous things. So yeah, but anyway, I think the smarter people in the audience understood what I did with Ariel, and I got a lot of new fans they're intelligent, high quality people. And I think Ariel did a great job talking to the masses, and I think it was a win-win for both of us. So yeah, it was a good thing to do. Was I treated fairly? No, I don't think I was treated fairly. I wouldn't invite somebody to do a podcast and then speak to him that way. I think he's very disrespectful. But it was a win for both of us, so I'll give him that.
All right, where's my money? Moneyberg, I got your back. I'm sticking up for you. Give me some money. No, I'm just kidding. So no money coming this way. I'm just being honest. I'm just trying to be objective here. I'm trying not to let all the crazy aura of things that are surrounding Moneyberg and all the negative things that people are saying, the way that Ariel tried to spin it as well. Yeah, and I do think that I just think that Ariel did him wrong, and it was like he tried to trip him up a lot of times with his words. He would ask questions very quickly to almost like to jar his brain and to get him confused and mixed up. Like it was a lot of those type of tactics. And again, it's like what I especially didn't like about that is he did that to him, but then when he had Dave Feldman on, owner of BKFC, he didn't press him about Frankie Edgar. He doesn't press Connor about that whole situation. Like he can deploy that venom and that vitriol in terms of his like journalism background or whatever, when need be, and at will, to extract answers that are like interesting and stuff. But then he chooses not to do it to those guys, which it would have been really great on behalf of Frankie Edgar to do that. And then he ends up going after Moneyberg because there's no downside. There's no love lost. It's just bonus points for the MMA community. I guess a lot of people gave him props for it, but I didn't like it. Like, just be fair with the guys. Hear him out. I know there's some bad things that people say about him. He's been called a scammer by folks that have taken his class, and maybe there's some things in his courses that aren't so good. I can't say, and I'm not going to say, and I'm not going to speculate because I haven't taken his classes. I don't know what he offers, but objectively listening to these interviews and thinking about the black belt thing, it doesn't seem so crazy to me. Yeah, maybe he's not at the Mikey Musumeci again level competing at the highest degree, but maybe he has that knowledge. Maybe he has those skills. Maybe we don't know the subjective criteria from gym to gym to gym that people use to give out black belts. Let's dig up all the black belts. Let's quiz them all, right? Like, we're not going to do that. Nobody normally cares. I think it's just because this guy's flashy and this guy has a business around teaching people to make money. And he's got, he's really put himself out there, and now he's opened himself up to attack. And I think that's what happened. But I think for anybody listening, I think we should give everybody on the planet a fair shot. Let's hear them out properly, and then we can make our decision. But that's kind of where I'm at right now, pending new information. Let me know what you think. Have I made you think about or reconsider him whatsoever? How do you feel about him? Do you feel I'm totally right? Do you feel I'm totally wrong? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I also think Mike Perry did a great job here. Very fair. It's just Mike Perry being Mike Perry. He's a real one. What a legend. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.